Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, well, we've got a special episode for you. It's the third in a three-part series of our special episodes with the Straight to the Apex guys. We've had Tony, we've had James, now it's time for Mark. That's right, the third host of the fantastic Straight to the Apex podcast joined me on a Darkest Timeline special episode. So yeah, there's questions galore. I asked Mark a lot of questions and he delivers some answers. So check that out. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And like I say, the big one there is share the podcast around. Really is the best thing you can do for the podcast. Right, let's get started. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline special with Mark Wilkin.
Recording in progress.
Allegedly, recording is in progress. Now, until I see that blue line, I get that bit of apprehension. Now, if you're listening along, then you probably didn't read the title too well to know that you should absolutely be watching two beautiful faces on the YouTube. This is the third of three parts of the I don't know what I ended up going with. The Getting to Know You Straight to the Apex podcast special, part 3, with the brains of the Straight to the Apex podcast.
Thank you.
Mark Wilkin. How are you, sir?
Excellent, thank you. And how's yourself?
Oh, just absolutely delightful. It's the best time of year. There's no stress at all. And everything's going fine. Everything's going swimmingly. Cannot complain about anything at all.
December, like you say, it's easy. There's not much happening this month.
I don't know what all the fuss is about.
Exactly.
Honestly, it's stress-free. I don't spend 24 days like this. Anyway, so this is it. This is the one. This is the one we've been waiting for. The people have asked and we answered. For you, Mark. It was Tony's first dance with a podcast. To my knowledge, anyway, it was Tony's first dance outside of a Straight to the Apex podcast.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
James has guested for us on the Laces Out podcast. But you're an old hand at the stepping out on the Straight to the Apex podcast. We've had you guest on Laces Out previously, and the still secret episode of the BS cast, as it ended up being, for the smaller ears amongst us, for the BS cast.
Yeah.
Which I often think about, when I go into Coda podcast and it sits there looking at me going, today? I'm like, in a minute, I've just got to do this. Okay, then. So I've promised myself when it's like the Formula One's finished and the NFL will get sort of lesser, I'm like, I'll need a little filler at some point. So there.
It does seem a long time ago, that one. Obviously, that was my first foray into podcasting, and I can't actually remember how long ago it was.
I feel that was a little bit like your interview. I was thinking about this today. It was like an informal interview to see if you had the chops, and clearly 2 seasons into your own podcast, you passed with flying colours. I hate to think what the 2 digits at the end of the date stamp would be. And I absolutely could find out right now because I think there's a copy on this laptop, but I don't know if that's the right way to go.
No, let's leave the mystery.
It's going to happen. One day it's going to appear and we're going to look at it and go, wow, look how young we all look there, because it'll be like 10 years. Like, look, I had both eyes and all my teeth then. So, as we know, third one, and there's, a format's been formed, questions were asked. I like to go with the same but different.
Okay.
So, basically, the way we start, little icebreaker. In hindsight, I felt bad about James's icebreaker, because he was like, I asked him a question and he answered it and I went, you're wrong and let me tell you why. and then later I was like, that wasn't the way to deal with that. So, Mark, your icebreaker is this.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the best chocolate bar?
I mean, as icebreakers go, that is a good one. I would have to say Galaxy Caramel. Which you probably are going to turn around and say that's wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong, and let me tell you why. Galaxy Caramel is it's a bit of a mute subject on the podcast. Two members of a particular podcast nearly came to blows over the chocolate debate. I can't say which two. I definitely wasn't involved. And Galaxy Caramel was the straw that broke the debate. Because both sides had to agree, no matter what their opinions were, that Galaxy Caramel was a viable option. So I will take your answer and I will accept it for what it is.
Thank you.
So, getting into the more standard questions. Cast your mind back. When can you say was the point in time where you were like, I am an F1 fan?
So, me and F1 have probably had a very complicated relationship. I remember being at home and my dad watching it and me basically saying to him, what are you watching this pile of crap for? Like, it's boring. What do you get up on a Sunday morning and watch this shit for? And I just remember kind of probably early teens, and then I got interested in cars, and I was like, Formula One. Best cars there probably is, race cars wise. And I started watching it with him, and it kind of grew from there. I think when I moved out and had my own home, I didn't watch it for a few years, just because I was poor and I bought a new home and I had other things to do. But yeah, it didn't take long before the Sky was installed and started watching it again. And so yeah, probably teens, missing 3 or 4 years and then back to it. So quite a while now.
I've sort of peppered my various different sort of opinions into the series that we've been doing with the Straight to the Apex guys. I've told a variety of different stories about how my life links to Formula One throughout. The last one being about lying in a hospital bed while everybody was watching F1, not wanting to miss the end of the race. Whilst I was dying. But
I mean, that's commitment. That's commitment right there.
Yeah. So, this is the one we want to know. This is the one we need to answer the debate or get the third part of the picture installed so that we can make our own informed opinions.
Okay.
How long have you known James and Tony? Where were you? What was the situation? And why do all three of you have a different story?
See, the thing is, we've discussed this amongst ourselves, and I mean, I remember it definitely was our partners worked together. That
okay.
is set in stone.
Okay, timeline. We're here. We're all on the same timeline.
Yeah. When it was, Not a clue. I don't know. I don't know. And where it was, again, I thought it was at a Christmas meal at a very expensive establishment in London. And then when Tony said about the church thing, I confirmed that with my wife, and she was like, yeah, he's right. I'm still not sure. I don't know which versions came first. Let's put it that. Chicken or the egg? Which one was it? Who knows?
I think we have to take from the fact that there are three almost completely different stories at this point in time. Let's put it this way: the alcohol has to have been flowing. Nobody knows where they were. Nobody knows when it was.
No, not a clue.
You can just about agree on the why.
Yes.
So that is because that will have been cemented at the early point in the evening for everybody before glug 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 glug. So let's just go with that. The beer was flowing, the wine was flowing, and the memories were flowing away.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's very interesting to hear that James didn't want to go, because he's very like me in that aspect. I did not want to go. I hate meeting new people. I was like, I'm not going. I don't want to go. I don't want to speak to your work colleagues, partners. Sod off. And she was like, no, there's some a bit your age now, because previously they were all quite a bit older than me, and I was like, got nothing in common with them. And then James is, well, a very similar age to me, and we both went to school together, but we didn't know each other at school, but we was at the same school, high school. Tony is about 10 years younger, and I was just like, okay then, I'll go. And yeah, it was me and James that got talking, and then somehow Tony appeared. I mean, Tony being Tony, like I say, he was late, and he appeared from somewhere.
He was eating when he arrived.
Probably arguing with Beth at the time as well. So, I mean, nothing's changed.
I'd relayed a story about going to a very similar sort of situation. It was one of those. But this time of year always reminds me of myself and my good lady going to a Christmas do. So there's that. And we walked in, and it was just tables and chairs round a dance floor, a DJ booth, and a bar. And I went, "What have you brought me to?" And she's like, "I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm sorry." I was like, "To the bar." And I was like, there is only one way only we're getting through this. Line them up. And we were doing, do you remember back in the day of Aftershock?
Yeah.
Doing traffic lights? The red, the green, and the yellow after. We were just doing traffic lights with a pint at one end and a whiskey at the other end, and the traffic lights in the middle, and just literally go. And yeah, it was a great night from what I remember.
Well, I seem to remember the previous Christmas do's with this same workplace before James and Tony was there. Katie's boss was very into like getting everyone to mix. So like I went with Katie and I fully expected to sit next to her all night. He was like, no, we're going to have boy girl and move people around the table. I was like, This is my worst nightmare. No.
And let's put it this way: they didn't ask you the greatest icebreaker you've ever been asked, which is the best chocolate bar. So
exactly. But yeah, so there was quite a lot of I really don't want to go. I've been suffered through this enough. But out of it, I met James and then I suppose Tony as well.
So we've gone through Formula 1 stuff and how long you've been into the Formula 1. As the Laces Out crowd will know, you're also an NFL fan. Not only an NFL fan, some of us who are NFL fans can say, I've seen it live because I went to Wembley. But for you, you can say, I saw it live in its native homeland. So,
Absolutely.
How far back does being an NFL fan go?
So NFL, I would say, I have probably over 10 years now. It was one of my former employees. I've got to blame them for quite a lot of things. Running, NFL, general fitness. Because when I started there, I didn't want to do anything apart from play football. But yeah, I remember a lad saying to me, because I also like our version of football, soccer for the American. I also like rugby league, like James. And I remember one of the lads saying, if you like rugby league, why don't you watch NFL? I was like, never really took an interest in it. But you like America, you go to America every year, like, just watch it. Watch Red Zone, just watch Red Zone. I remember watching it thinking, why have I never seen this before? And I was instantly hooked. And as the years have progressed, it's probably my I shouldn't say this being the host of a Formula One podcast. It's probably my number one sport now. Mostly followed by Formula One.
When I was at school, I was absolutely mad on basketball.
Right.
And I've alluded to in the past that for me the NBA got to a point where it was just unwatchable because there was too many rumours around the officiating. Which, if you've watched the Laces Out podcast, there have been mentions about how the NFL starting to feel a little bit NBA-ish. And certainly this year, if not last year, there's been some particularly dubious calls which have caused like teams to go out of playoffs and stuff like that. And I had, I've spoken before about like the NFL, how I started watching the NFL in the 80s. That's how far back that goes. When it was like on a stupid o'clock at night on like Channel 4 or BBC 2 or whichever one it was. And like, when you were really little but you got to stay up late. Yeah. And you didn't care what was happening. You were just like, I'm up. I shouldn't be. Keep stum. See how long we can ride this one. And it was literally like, nobody's sending me to bed. I guess I'll watch. What are you lot watching on the TV? What is this? Because I was football, soccer, round ball. I was football mad, like crazy mad. And I'm like, it's played on the same surface, but what is going on? And then as the years went on, my bedroom sort of morphed into like what was at one point just complete football. It started to be like these framed posters of like the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Cowboys, all like the Broncos, all the classic sort of teams, and like players in certain poses and stuff. And I remember that bedroom in the 80s being like, look at all my NFL stuff. And then like you say, certain sports you get out of those sports, whatever reason. And then I remember years later sitting with my hat and my scarf, watching the Super Bowl on my own, in the dark, like, yay, I'm doing it. I'm the only person in the entire UK who is sat right now watching the Super Bowl. Cool. And then like going to work is like, what's wrong with you? It's like, I was up watching the Super Bowl. And then people being like, oh, how did it go? I was meant to check it out. I was like, you like American football? Yeah. Got a fantasy team. Sorry, what? And then realising that half of the office of people I worked with were all into the NFL, I was like, right, okay, it's officially a thing. That's cool.
I was gonna say, like, back when you started watching it, then was it a bit like not taboo, but almost like you just didn't talk about it, like something you shouldn't be watching because you didn't see the gear, did you, at all? Like, it's not accessible as it is now.
No, in the 80s, it was like as a child, I didn't have the comprehension to be able to take it out into the world and explain it to someone. I'm like, it's like football, but not in any way, shape or form. You don't use your feet, you use your hands. And like back in those days, the shoulder pads were up here, and the helmets were like this, and they just looked like tanks running down the field. And you know, it was in the days where teams were just taking souls when they were running people over and stuff. You know, it was almost like there were no rules at all. It was just stop that guy however you want. So it was like, it's carnage, but I can't look away. So at that stage, I didn't have the ability to take it out into the world and explain to my friends that I played football with, or I went to, like, you know, Beavers, Scouts, whatever, that I was watching this thing. Because I was also very much focused on, if I just sit here and be quiet, I can watch the TV while these guys don't notice I'm watching the TV. So
yeah.
So then, to jump back in years later and be like, I used to really enjoy sitting and watching it, and I had all these pictures and posters and all this. To then be like, oh, you can get it on the TV here, and you can watch it here if you want to stay up really late. That was the point where I was like, I'm the only person in the whole wide country that right now is watching it. And I used to like be on Facebook with like friends I had in America who'd be like obviously watching it as well. I'd be like, oh, you know, I can't believe you're watching it in the UK. What time is it there? It's like 3. It's like, it hasn't started yet. I'm like, I know. You're not at work tomorrow, are you? Yes.
Yes.
And that went on for a few years, and then all of a sudden just realising that I wasn't the only person, purely by accident, by going to work the next day and being like, I was watching this thing you wouldn't understand. It's called the Super Bowl, because I'm cool. And they were like, yeah, I watched it as well. Like, the Super Bowl. You know, the American. Yeah, I understand what it was. I was watching it as well. Really? And then that was when it just like there was this kind of like explosion. And as we know now, you know, getting into like fantasy leagues and doing that side of things, doing podcasts, you know, even back then podcasts were in their infancy, so the thought of doing NFL podcast or even anything podcast related was just a completely foreign concept.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and it's obviously a different story. So there we go, a little insight into sort of both of our our history with other sports outside of Formula One. So, another question that I've asked the other two, which I'm going to ask you. You're sitting at home one day. This is how I imagine it. You're sitting at home one day and you go, I've got an amazing idea. I'm going to take everything I know about Formula One and I'm going to make that knowledge available to the rest of the world for free. How did you go from being Formula One's number one fan to Formula One's best podcast? Trifecta?
Yeah.
Triple?
Yeah, I think that's...
Triple?
Yeah, Fruple. Yeah, I mean, that sounds wrong.
Oh, no, that's something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go on. How did you go from fan to podcast host?
It was really strange. So, just after COVID, we went on a holiday with our friends to Menorca. And it was around that time where holidaying was still a bit taboo. Like, oh, you're going on holiday and COVID's a thing. Like, how
could you?
Yeah, how could you? So there wasn't many people in the hotel, and I think one day me and my friend Mike, we found like an American football and was chucking it about, and as lads do, we just can't sit still. And then there was this old couple next to us on the sunbeds, and then this mother and daughter, and we was just talking football, like American football, then Formula One. And I remember it was the old couple. The lady said to my wife, she was like, God, he does know his stuff about a lot of things. Like, does he watch it all? And she was like, yeah, he watches it, you know, all. And I remember the daughter and the mum were their Formula One fans and was talking about that. And this old couple just sat listening going, God, like, I can't believe, you know, you're talking about it like you are and in depth. And we've got a mutual friend who I like to call Ned Flanders, as he's my next door neighbour. And he's got 2 kids. I'm just throwing out there, Rod and Todd. Yeah. And I remember him obviously saying about you and your podcasts, and I just thought, well, wonder if Andy's interested in a Formula One podcast, and it just snowballed from there. And like you say, I floated it with Stu, and then he got me in touch with you, and we chewed the fat, as it were. But yeah, it all started by literally going on a holiday and a few people saying, basically, God, he can talk about a subject. Like this mother and daughter were like mad in Formula One, and I just sat for hours talking to them about it. And I just thought, Andy does a podcast. Why don't I just do this and see if anyone will actually listen?
So, a story I've been saving, because you were like, I wonder if Andy is interested in a Formula One podcast. The Straight to the Apex podcast was not the first attempt at getting a Formula One podcast. So way back in the days, I'd done like what are the big things we can hit in people's interests. Like if somebody had come to me, the joke I always make is if someone came to me and was like, I'm really into crochet. You don't suppose there's any room for a crochet podcast, do you? I'd be like, let's give it a try. Let's give it a whirl. And I've said before, we've had podcasts that have had runs. Some of those runs have been amazing runs, and then those podcasts have just stopped for whatever reason. There are some of our podcasts that have had like big numbers aren't a thing anymore. So, if you go back to the very beginning, people that you see week in, week out, a lot of those people were there first few episodes. I think me and Paul one day went back to see how far back it was before Paul appeared, and I think it's the 2nd episode. And I always say to him, you're ingrained into the DNA of the podcast. So one of the biggest reasons that I started all of this was because I spent a lot of time with a lot of people that had a lot of knowledge about a lot of subjects. I've got a guy here who absolutely loves computer games. I've got a guy here who loves movies. I've got a guy here who loves football. I've got a guy here that loves wrestling. I've got a guy here that loves whatever it was. So I'm like, bring all these people and let's do a football podcast. Oh, absolutely, I'd love to do a football podcast. Cool. Right, next, wrestling. It's a big market. We've got a guy here that not only absolutely loves it, has extensive knowledge about it, and he also ties into this person who also has the knowledge about it, and we've got all these people that have got all this knowledge. It's a no-brainer. Let's do this. So this went on for a while. I tried to convince a friend of mine that a golf podcast would absolutely be a thing, and a cricket podcast would absolutely be a thing. And I had some friends who were mad on Formula One. And I was like, Formula One's a big sport, it's a big subject, it's a big whatever. Let's take your love and enjoyment and knowledge and turn it into a podcast. And I just couldn't convince these people to make that jump. Right. It was always like, nobody wants to hear from us, nobody wants to do it. And as it was, those people went through like life-changing sort of things, and that was the end of that. And it was like, okay, it would have been nice. Obviously, like I say, I like trying to catch all the podcast Pokemon. I'm trying to catch them all. And then, as we know from the other side of the story, our mutual friend rocks up and is like, you don't have any interest in a Formula One podcast, do you? And I'm like, I absolutely do. Talk to me. He's like, I've got a friend. He's got a group of guys who want to do a Formula One podcast. And I was like, yes. And then, as we know, there was the conversation about, well, do we have to go and do the podcast? And our friend from back east was like, I mean, I wouldn't know where to start, and I was like, I've got limited knowledge, and the answer was no, they're going to try and do it themselves. And I was like, fantastic, that sounds amazing. And as we know at this point, you know, Straight to the Apex is one of my favourite podcasts, and I love the fact that I get the opportunity to listen each week while simultaneously vetting it for any
James
comments that might get people cancelled or fired. It is that backwards and forwards between like the James on the recording and the me on the text going, better look next time, James, not this week, pal.
Don't goad him because it'll get worse.
No, because that is the thing.
Worse.
There is that thing where I'm like, any day now I'm going to be like, I just need to... I said to him, I was like, there are times when I hear you go, this is the week, guys, I'm gonna do it this week, I'm gonna get cancelled, and I'm like, if I leave work at 4, I can get back, I can pull the episodes down, I can re-edit them and re-upload them by... I should be able to do it. Like,
oh God, no.
And then it's like,
I mean,
not today.
I remember, like, say, the conversations we had, and I was totally open for you to be part of it as much as you wanted. And I remember Stu saying, Andy doesn't really want to, but he'll kind of run it for you if you want. And I just thought to myself, look, let's try it. If it didn't work, I mean, you have enough on your plate with all the things you do. Let's just see. And I was kind of thinking who I wanted on it. And like I say, me and James have always talked about Formula One. Tony talks about it, generally falls asleep in a race, so doesn't really talk about it. Really, Beth is the fan of Formula One, not Tony. And Tony was real apprehensive, like he was really nervous about doing it. James was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And in my head I had a vision of what I wanted it to be, and it's probably superseded everything I thought.
So I was gonna say, you know, how does the current format fit into your vision? But I kind of already suspected that you were gonna be like, it's so much bigger than that vision. And you know, I always talk about. I always wanted a podcast to have a super tight format and be super loose, which the two don't necessarily go together. You can't have hey, let's just, you know, let's rap and you know, that kind of be cool with the kids and that whilst also following a format. Yet you guys have proven that it's absolutely possible to say, we're going to start here, we're going to talk about this, and this, but we're also going to follow this very tight, very well organised, very sort of, you know, formatted. It's
hard work, Andy. It's hard work some weeks, Jesus Christ. Honestly, you don't see some of the faces I pull off the camera.
As my old boss would say, it's like herding cats.
Exactly. But no, I always wanted it to feel like that down the pub with your mates type vibe. But also, if I listen to a podcast or watch a program, I want certain key bits of information. Like, you know, when I listen to you guys in the NFL, you get the scores, you get the results. When I listen to your football podcast, again, the scores, results, predictions, there's always that information format running through. And I think Stu was kind of, you know, he said, Andy likes predictions, he likes this. Right, okay, let's get that in. So we've kept elements of your other media on CookieCast and kind of put it in ours. But yeah, to be honest, I couldn't do it with two better guys, and I hate praising them because they'll be big heads off this, but I love it. I really do. And I can't believe none of the other two have said this, but thank you to you for giving us the platform to do it. Honestly, I listened to them both and I thought neither of them have thanked you. Like,
it's one of those. It's, you know, I know I often sound, I don't know if I sound like I'm like a bit of a suck-up at times, but I'm like, it's honestly one of those things. It's an honour to be able to put it out each week because I'm like, outside of like some of my absolute favourite podcasts that are run by professional comedians, it is hands down the podcast that makes me laugh out loud the most. And the majority of the time I'm listening to it, I'm in the office. So the number of times people have been like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm listening to a podcast. It doesn't matter. And it's like, "What podcast is it?" It's like a Formula One podcast. And people are like, "Yeah," and it's that funny. I'm like, it really is. So yeah. We will double back to this subject, but the technological gods are informing me that unfortunately we have to take an ever so small break, just a tiny snippet for the watchers, listeners, and viewers. For me and you, it'll be ever so slightly longer, but nobody needed to know that. So we will be back very shortly. 2 ticks.
Bye-bye.
Recording in progress.
As always, I have to sit and stare and wait for the blue line of doom to appear to tell me that I did the things right that I'm supposed to do and have done nearly 1,000 times at this point. We are back. Myself, Mark Wilkin, here to finish up our 3-part series on the Getting to Know You podcast. Some call it the Darkest Timeline After Dark. Some call it Darkest Timeline Special. Realistically, it's an opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about the Straight to the Apex guys, and I was out there with my wrangling lasso, and I managed to snare a Tony early doors. James was like, "That podcast was good, let me in." But Mark was hiding behind the sofa, and then he was like, okay, I'll do it. Fine, you persuaded me. The big envelope of cash that you sent did help. So
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Christmas Brucey bonus. Thank you very much.
Exactly. And apparently, yes, you can send 92p in the post. So now then, I wrote this question. And I was like, is it unfair?
Okay.
Because I had a format, and some questions were replaced, and some questions were kept the same. You'll see that already. You'll see that from Tony's to James's, from James's to this.
Yeah.
This is one of the questions I rewrote, and I said, is this too much? So I'm going to give you kind of a multiple choice option to this one. Choose your own adventure, some might say.
What?
The question I wrote is this. What was the best Formula One moment in history? Now then, here's your options. You can have that question as is, or what may be an easier way to answer the question is this. What was your best Formula One moment in history? The moment for you that if somebody came along to you and said, you're really into Formula One. I've never watched a minute of it in my life. Nobody has ever told me about anything to do with it. What is Formula One? In one moment, tell me why I should watch. You would go, I know exactly what I'm going to tell you about. It's this.
I'm going to piss a lot of people off here.
Oh, those are the ones I like.
So I think up until this moment, I'm going to say, I think there was quite a few individual races. There was probably a lot of Spa in the rain. There was a lot of crashes. The Coulthard, Michael Schumacher incident. I think the thing that really got me hooked was Lewis Hamilton's first year. Just watching a young kid from England come in and stick it to Fernando Alonso in exactly the same car. That season, just from start to finish, how close he was to winning a title, and then going on to next year, that last race in Brazil, where Timo Glock went wide, Lewis come through and got that position, and Massa celebrating and all his family. Them 2 seasons were the season where I thought, oh, I'm a fan now. That's it, I'm hooked. I'm watching every race because, that first season of Lewis Hamilton was absolutely amazing.
There's I know that there've been steadily making a Formula One movie, which I believe has got Chris Helmsworth in. Possibly.
No, so that was the first one. That was Rush. That was about Niki Lauda and
Oh, of course, yeah.
James Hunt. Yeah.
But they are making one at the moment.
Yeah, it's Brad Pitt.
That was it.
Yeah.
I got my very attractive leading men confused.
Easily done.
Don't let Brad Pitt say that.
No. Yeah, they are filming something. They've not really said kind of what the storyline is. They've not really released many details about it. But yeah, Brad Pitt took his film crew and a fake team to quite a lot of races this year. Lewis Hamilton is involved in it. I mean, Lewis being Lewis, he'll probably be in it somewhere. But yeah, no one knows anything about it. But yeah, they've been filming it for quite a while actually, and then the writer strike happened, so that's probably prolonged it a little bit more.
I've seen a lot of stuff that have now that all the strikes are done with, I've seen a lot of stuff announcing their release dates to sort of capitalise on the back of the strike ending. But those release dates are like, come in soon in 2025. And it's like, what? What are we going to do?
Forget next year. Forget.
What are we going to do between now and then? So
reruns.
Yeah, and stuff. There's stuff that was like in pre-production before the strike. So you're like, okay, so we'll once we get back to work, then that's going to be a short thing. Yep, come in December 2024. It's like, what? So, I know a little bit about this personally, but I don't want to spoil anything. A subject that has come up with Tony and with James, and now is about to come up with you. Talk to me about your workout routine. Are you a cardio junkie? Are you a Thursday night football player? Are you playing rugby on the weekends? Are you putting the pads and helmet on and getting out there or on the gridiron?
No, I'm way too small for that. So, as Tony will say, apparently I'm the busiest man in the world. So I play racquetball every week.
Nice.
So I tried squash, was terrible at it. Racquetball's a bit more manageable. Five-side football every week. Gym a couple of times a week, so weights, just general weights. And then run on a weekend at parkrun, as you will very well know.
I am aware of the parkrun. There's a story about a particular parkrun that I don't know has ever been mentioned, but you know, you go, you do your parkrun, you get a good time, and you're like, yeah, I feel good. I feel good for the week. It set me up for my Saturday to go and do whatever debaucherous things that people do after a parkrun. And then some friends, local, not too local, but localish, come, and they're like, "We'll come and give and sample your parkrun." Lovely stuff. That's fantastic. Come along, join us at our parkrun. And one of those particular friends laps you on the parkrun.
Yeah.
Fine. Because when you go, can't believe you lapped me. Oh, did I? I didn't even see you. Oh, cheers for that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's worse or better.
It felt a lot worse, I can tell you that much. I didn't even notice. I'm sure you didn't, from your heady heights of getting a parkrun done in, one extra lap more. So we've mentioned pandemic, we've mentioned workout, we've mentioned the difficulties of doing certain things during the pandemic. How did you manage through that time? Because a lot of those, or at least a good few of those sports, sound like they're dependent on other people. Five-a-side football, dependent on businesses being open, I presume, for racquetball.
Yeah.
You can obviously you can still walk out your front door and go for a run. That was a big thing at the time, but park runs weren't a thing. So how did you cope through that time?
Well, I mean, even running wasn't allowed for a certain portion of that, really, was it? You wasn't allowed out. To be honest, so at that time, I was furloughed as well. So
Wow.
I was furloughed for nearly 6 months. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of eye-opening listening to you, James and Tony, about mental health. I'm very lucky in the sense that I don't feel like I've ever suffered from it. I think in COVID, probably like everyone, was some of the loneliest, horriblest days because my wife was still at work. She's a dental nurse. She worked all the way through. She was doing night shifts as well, like up till 8 o'clock on the night.
Wow.
And because obviously they had to spread out the patient and answer the phones, and there were long days. And like you say, I mean, I play tennis as well. So all the things that I do to kind of take my mind off work, I couldn't do. And so what I did do was shitty jobs that you put off. Painting the fence, dragged that out over quite a couple of months. Designed a new kitchen because I'm a AutoCAD designer, so I decided I'll design a new kitchen, which then grew into a Lego room extension out the back of the house. That kept me busy. Got me in trouble, but it kept me busy. But yeah, it was difficult. I must admit, like I've listened to you. I think you said it with James last week about running. I hate running. I hate it. Detest it. Absolutely detest it. Whoever says they love running needs a red testing. But when that moment you've finished, it's like nothing else. And I think that, like you said, you might hate it, but you're so busy thinking about hating it, you're not thinking of the crap day at work you've had, or my car needs this, or so maybe that's why I've never suffered with mental health, because I like to compete. I mean, I've played football since I was 7, every week, regardless. I started at 11-a-side, went into 5-a-side, and we play with a guy now who's in his mid-70s, and he just inspires me every week to think, I'm 40, but he's 70-odd, and he's still playing. He's still running rings around people. I can keep this going. And I think football for me is my biggest thing. I love playing football. But running and everything else complements that. And I think, during COVID, it was tough. You know, it really was. And I won't say I suffered. Like I say, I'm lucky, but they were probably some of the hardest days, where everything I wanted to do, I couldn't. And I was sat at home alone. I mean, I went on my PlayStation a lot, but there's only a certain amount you can do, isn't there? And you think you're alone with your own thoughts.
Yeah, it's I remember there was that point where the running joke was that people's dogs were hiding from them because the only thing you were allowed to do was take the dog for a walk. So people walking the dog 6 times a day, and the dog's riding behind the sofas because they're like, I can't go for another walk. I remember. It feels a little sad at this point in time, but I remember we were the shielding or whatever when you've been in contact with somebody who's had COVID. We had that weird thing where like somebody in the house got COVID. So immediately you shut everything down. You can't go out. You can't go shopping. You can't do this. People would have to come and drop shopping off, etc., etc. And we never got it. But as I think it was the last episode I did with James, I was saying like we were like dodging bullets like Neo in the Matrix, and then right at the end we got it. But I remember a point in time where we were sheltering, and I was like, when everything shut, I was just hitting my stride with gym, running, working out and all that, and they closed the gyms, and I had a bit of a... And as I think I've already mentioned, my good lady sort of cleared a space in what was then our garage, and she was like, "You've got all the equipment. I've just put the equipment in that space," and I was just like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And I honestly look back now and think that probably saved me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But from the running perspective, not being able to leave the house, I remember going in the back garden. Our back garden is not big. It's not big. It's not big at all. And I just ran round in circles. And I was like, I had like the Strava on, and I'm like, right, it'll tell me when I've done the distance. So I just ran around the garden in circles. And there was points where like my neighbour would be like walking across the garden, and I could see him just like, and I'm like, I've just got to get it. I've just got to get it in. I've just got to get it in. And I just went round and round and round. And then at some point it's like to go the other way, and just to get something. Because that point of, we were at a point where you could go out of the house for exercise. You know, the point was you can walk your dog and you can go out for exercise because of that time of mental health being a big issue. So I was like, I've got a gym set up and I can go out and run. That's going to be me, because I swore at the start I will not be that person that gets locked in the house and puts loads of weight on. And I was hell bent on not putting back weight that I'd lost.
Yeah.
So then to have to shield at a point that we could finally go out and run, I'm like, I can't, I've just got to do something. So yeah, one of the sadder moments in time was running around the garden just to try and get something going.
I mean, that's more committed than me. I definitely didn't run around my garden. I was like, oh, if I can't run, I can't run. What shame?
Yeah, I mean, you would say, like, you know, anybody that says they enjoy running needs the red checking, and I'm very much with you. But I can say this: me and a lad I work with, we've started running on a Saturday. So I go and meet him, and he's like just sort of getting into it. You know, he's doing it and he's getting into it. So I was like, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we run together? So we go and run, and every Saturday so far, when we get back, he checks his thing and it says that's your longest run. So for him, every time he gets home, he's like, I have achieved my best.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you did well, you didn't stop, you kept going, we're really plugged away, you know, you've done well, you should be proud, get yourself a nice big breakfast, that sort of thing. And I go off to climb, and I walk away from it like, you know, I feel like I've done a good run and I've done something good for someone else, and I do all that and that sort of thing. And then there was a Saturday where I'd left him and I went to the climbing wall, and I got there, and I'd been really struggling with this particular route. And you were saying about being inspired by like an old boy that's still doing it. There was a point I turned round and watched a guy climb up the route that I'd been struggling with, and he had one leg, and I went, what am I complaining about? And he came down and he wandered off, and I got straight up that wall. I was like, if a man with one leg can do it, what is my excuse? And I just kept going to people. I was like, if you ever question whether you can do something or not, I watched a man climb this with one leg.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got to find those inspirations in the world, but I felt like some cosmic force had sent that man to me, like, come on.
And I think that's the beauty of running. Like, obviously, me and Stu and my partner, we do a lot of running, like 10Ks as well. I mean, we don't miss a park run at all. And park run is for everybody. I know you said about being lapped, which, you know, isn't nice. But you look at everyone and you probably prejudge someone. They can't run. I'm faster than you. Or, oh, I'm slower than you. And everyone is so different. And I think that's the beauty of park run and the 10Ks we do and longer runs. You can't judge anyone. And everyone's there for a reason. And like you see old, young, just all there. And to be fair, when you're there, you think, freaking hell, it is hard work. You know, and you've all achieved something. Yeah, running's really strange. Like, I never thought I'd run. And then, like I say, it was the same place that I got into NFL at. Was they did Hull 10K every year, and I was like, oh, we're doing this running club on a Wednesday, why don't you come? Not interested. Oh, just do this. It'll help your football and your fitness. Go on then, I'll give it a go. And I hated every second of it, but I thought, do you know what? I can see benefits in other ways. And I just carried on with it.
Yeah, I was talking, lad I run with on a Saturday, I was telling him about sort of my running journey, and somebody had said it was like, just do the couch to 5k. You'll start, and the first question they ask is, can you run to the end of the street? And if the answer's yes, then you can do couch to 5k. Yeah. Where I was in my life, I couldn't run to the end of the drive. So to even comprehend, doing a couch to 5k or 5k or anything like that, I was like, no. And then the more people spoke to me, and the more people were like, just run for 30 seconds. That's all you've got to do. You've got to run for 30 seconds, walk for a minute, run for 30 seconds, walk for a minute. I was like, I can do that. But I still had that, I can't do 5k, but I can do that. Mm. And it was at a point when I was trying to turn my entire life round. So it was a bit like, I mean, I'll try, I'll give it a go. And you know, you go out for that first run, and it's 20 minutes of walking and 10 minutes of running over half an hour, and you're like, well, I did it. And then you do that 3 times in a week, and then next thing it's like, okay, well, now I've got to do, I couldn't remember the combination. It's like, do a minute of running and 30 seconds of walking. I think they switch around. And I was saying to the lad I run with, I was like, the Couch 5K's got one particular point where most people stop because the jump's too big. I was like, what you want is the bigger jumps early on, because you feel more capable. That way, when you start to ease into the back end of it, it's not as difficult. And then basically you do your Couch to 5k, you've done that first 5k, it's a huge achievement. But then the question is, what's next? And like you say, you know, to chalk off a 10k here, there and everywhere, and I know Stu travels all over the country to do as many as he can get his hands on. Which, you know, every time he sends through his results, and it's always a better time, and it's always, you know, it's that thing of, you've done well there, you're doing well, it's a good time, and all that. So you've got that camaraderie of, you know, well done sort of thing. So yeah, it's a weird beast.
It is. I mean, Stu will have told you he thought we were nuts when we ran. Like, he had no interest in it whatsoever. And now he runs he runs more than me a week, because he said, you're crazy, I'll never do a park run. He did his first park run, he was like, I'll never do a 10k. Did his first 10k, and like you said, now he's on about entering the Great North Run next year. Like, you know, it's just absolute, and that's what running does to you. It's so strange and weirdly addictive, and I don't know if we're mentally insane or not, but yeah, it's crazy.
I think there is a point where you hate every minute, you hate every step, you hate every moment of running. And then there's a day where what you say, instead of I hated every minute of that, is you say, I didn't hate it. It's not I enjoyed it, it's not I liked it, it's not that was a great run. We all know the run where you come back and you're like, I felt quick on that run. We all know the run where you come back and it's like, I dragged myself round that run. And every run in between. You know, sometimes I went out this morning, I set off a little too quick, I regretted it minutes later. I then had to sort of plod along for the next 2 miles, like, you're an idiot, you do it all the time, why do you do it, what's wrong with you? Just carry on, just get there. And then towards the back end, I must have, like, balanced out, because then I felt like I had a bit more, and you know, you get back and you look and it's like, you know, Saturday I got back from the run and it's like, I got 7 achievements today. I wonder what
Yeah.
I got achievements. Things like that, those little things that it's like, I didn't hate every minute of it. And I think when you can say that about running, for some ways, that's maybe the best you could hope for.
Yeah, it is like you say. There's some runs that you go out and you think, I really don't want to do that. I really can't be arsed. And you go out and you think, you know what? I felt good. Like you say, and then you look on your Strava and you think, bang, bang, bang. Bloody hell, that was a good run. And like you say, it is the high and low of running. I mean, in no shape or form, am I a professional athlete, and my time is going to affect me getting into the Olympics. But you almost get into that mindset of thinking like that, don't you? Because I don't know, it's really weird and hard to describe running. Because for non-runners, like, you're an idiot.
You know the one that always gets me? The one when you get home from a run and you're like, that was just awful. That was the worst. That was terrible. Why did I get an achievement? Personal best? Are you kidding me? That was the worst. You're like, just broken. Because you know when it breaks into sections, it's like, from here to here, you did your personal best. It's like, I was falling over in slow motion for that section. What are you on about? It's like, I think this one's broken.
Yeah.
So, Straight to the Apex podcast has gone into its hibernation form, into its sleep mode, low power mode. But it will return. Obviously, it's going to come back bigger, stronger, faster. And I think I'd intended to ask Tony this and never got to it, but I did ask James, and you know, we've talked about the super tight format. We've talked about the fact that it's just an absolute laugh riot. What's next for Straight to the Apex? More the same? Bigger, brighter, better things? Where do we go from here?
None of the episodes where James and Tony dress up in suits, thank you very much. I don't want any of that when the Queen died.
Honestly, I'm thinking, is it time for a uniform? Some nice printed polo shirts, Straight to the Apex across here, some hats.
It'd be difficult because Tony can't pin his colours to a mast. He changes team every week, so it depends on, so it'd maybe start with a red one, and then it'll morph into a blue one and an orange one, and you'd have to have every colour under the sun. No, I would like to think pretty much the same, if I'm honest. I mean, I really enjoyed, like you said, about when you listen to us, and like, obviously, you listen to yourself, like probably like me, and I think, oh God, is that what I sound like? I like listening to the ones where I'm not on. So like, your favourite one is the week I wasn't there, where Tony went a bit off-piste, and that's great. More of the same.
Obviously that is a podcast I've brought up in the past. It spoke to me personally. It spoke to me on different levels than other podcasts for whatever reason, and it also helped that Tony was like, "Oh, Andy does this podcast, and it may seem like a guy who's just ranting and raving about absolute nonsense, but in actual fact, it's this." And I was like, he actually gets what I'm doing week in, week out, because I'm work on the principle that he's probably the only person, and it was that, like I say, it helped that he was like, by the way, this podcast is about this, and I'm like, somebody gets me. So it did help. There was it wasn't ever going to be a situation where I was like, oh, that episode was real good because Mark wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? It was just a moment in time where I was like, it made me laugh. It made me a little bit emotional. It made me look at podcasting in a different way. It reignited that spark, that energy for me. That there are days when I'm like, I've got 3 podcasts to code. I've got one that's got a bit of an issue that I need to sort out. I've got, as I was talking to you about off air, I've got technical issues with an audio recording. I need to Google how to make a change to this. I've been sent, as we know from the past, I've been sent a file format that doesn't seem to be the same as the last one I was using, but I like that last one because it was real easy. You just plug it in and it works. And this one doesn't want to play with anything I've got. So, and sometimes, like I love podcasts. It's just a thing. I love listening to them. I love getting new episodes. Like I say, straight to Apex, week in, week out, getting that new episode and being like, oh, I get to go and, I'll listen to it on a dog walk, or I'll listen to it at work or whatever. I love podcasts and I love podcasting. And that doesn't mean that there are days where you're like, oh, God, I could do without having this much time and this many podcasts. And can I move this here to relieve it there? And realising that if I get up early enough, I can set videos uploading while I'm going for a run before I go to work so that they're still there for that night makes a big difference, but it's a big help and stuff like that. But listening to that kind of was that kind of reminder of this is why we all do it. We all do it for a reason. Each of us has our own independent reason for doing it, and a lot of it was captured in that.
And I think that's the other thing why I don't want it to change, in the sense that we do a round robin of hosting. So with each, like, I didn't want to be the host every single week, and then them two like be my sidekicks. And Tony was very against it first. He was really nervous, didn't want to lead one. And I think now he's coming to his element, because we each have, like you say, that format, but you can take it where you want to go, and don't get me wrong, he infuriates me. He really does infuriate me. But it's our personalities in that episode we're hosting, and I think that is magical, really.
When you'd made the decision from the start, from the very beginning, to do it in that way, I was like, there was the half of me that wants every podcast to be perfect went, I don't know if does it work? Can you do? How will that work? And like the panic of, well, it'll be different. Are they going to use different font? How am I going to put that? How will I get that across? And realizing I can just use one, it's the three of you, no matter who's hosting, you are three people hosting a podcast. So I was like, okay. And then listening to, like you say, your individual personalities coming through in each of those individual episodes, I was like, it's a fresh, new take on podcasting that works so well. I love the episodes where Tony's in charge, because I can see that you go, I can take my foot off the gas ever so slightly and take the piss. And I'm like, this is going to be good. I like this. This is going to be good. I love it. And like, James has got that kind of, he sits between you, between Tony, like a little bit of like the go-between, where he's like, and he's hell-bent on getting cancelled, and you've got that aspect going on. And then when it's your week, it's like, oh, it's going to be real tight. Mac's going to keep that ship going right, and it's such a great format, and like I keep saying, a great formula, that I'm like, I kind of knew when I brought that question forward of what's next. There's that part of me that was like, please say nothing. Please say nothing. I don't, I'm like, yeah, let's get some uniforms involved and make that a thing. Fine. Let's, make a random quiz question once a week for the listeners or viewers. Fine. Saying, well, we've had this idea and we're going to start doing it this way. And I'd be like, yeah, is that really? So I was like, I'm asking because I want to know, what's next, whilst at the same time hoping for more of the same, because it's super tight, it's super fun, it's super enjoyable. From my perspective,
Oh, good, thank you.
I honestly cannot express it enough. One of my favourite podcasts, and I listen to a couple of podcasts each week.
We really do appreciate it, Andy, honestly. It's because sometimes we think, fuck it, what are we going on about? Like, what are we talking? Like, it just goes so far off. But like you say, I quite like that. It's never boring, and what I would not want it to be is become stale and boring.
Yeah.
And I think with them two on the podcast, there's not a chance in hell that'll happen.
No.
Especially Tony. So, like I say, the kid infuriates me, but we do have a laugh. And I think that, like you guys, with the NFL one and the football one and everything, you've got to keep that. And you've got to keep, when it becomes stale, then you've had it, you don't want to do it. That's when it's like, no, right, okay. Yeah. But no.
When the fun stops, stop.
Stop. Exactly.
So, very much like Tony's and James's podcasts, the technological gods are saying to me that it might be time to bring this one to a close, which I like because I didn't get through all my questions, which means you absolutely have to come back to answer my other questions. My other questions were like the best ones.
Oh, well.
No. So yes, from me to you, from me to your podcast, from me to your podcast listeners, I'm getting tired of listening to me saying, I'm happy that you trusted me to put your podcast out into the world. I love listening to it when it's there to listen to. I look forward to it coming back. I look forward to producing more fantastic 4-in-1 podcasts. Thank you for joining me to do this special episode. I appreciate you taking the time out to come on. You are always welcome back, no matter what the podcast is. The door's always open. And I said to Tony and James, and I'm saying to you, there's more podcast here for us to do. I've still got more questions I need answers to. So yeah, let's do another one. It's been fun.
Definitely, yeah. No, I really appreciate it. Like I say, thank you. And I'll be the one to say thanks for having us, because without you, we couldn't have done it. I wouldn't have known where to start. And you was fantastic at the start. You give us that platform to talk a load of shit, loosely about Formula One. But it's fantastic, and like I say, I'm a listener to all your others, as we all are. So keep doing what you're doing.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, sir. And I'm sure we will see you again very soon. Until then, it's a big bye-bye from me. It's a big bye-bye from him. See you later, buddy.
Bye.
So there you go, everything's out. Another one done. Big thank you to Mark. Big thank you to all the Straight to the Apex guys. Tony, James, Mark. I appreciate everything you do in the podcast space. I appreciate you as podcast brothers. And big thank you from me to all of you for coming on and doing these special episodes. And I think we can all agree they were special episodes. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. Before you go, please do like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews. And check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. That way you can get in touch with us. What did you think to these episodes? Did you enjoy them? Do you want more of them? I've been fishing for a few other guests. Maybe you want to be a guest. Let us know. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this awesome cookie cast.